Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user Self-Serve Sportswash. Am I the a-hole for keeping score with my family and ruining dinner? I, 27 male, am the third of 4 siblings and have always felt like an afterthought. Lori, 33 female, Chuck, 29 male, and Jade, 25 female, have always gotten the first and best from my parents and each other. I get the leftovers if I'm lucky. I haven't gotten a birthday present from any of my siblings in about 10 years, but I still get asked to pitch in for group gifts for each of them every year. On Friday night, we were having a family dinner, and it honestly felt like every other sentence was a dig at me or a less than subtle brag by my siblings about something they had been given by my parents that I was denied. They talked about how nice almost all of their weddings were, but made sure to mention it was okay that my wife and I had a small, low-key wedding, and it was okay, we loved it. But they brushed over the fact that my parents paid for all of my siblings' weddings, but not mine. Because somehow they couldn't afford it because they were saving up for Jade's wedding. They brought up how little student loans they have because my parents helped them. All of them lived on campus at expensive 4-year schools. I lived at home and went first to a very prestigious, very hard to get into watchmaking school. I got paid to attend this school, so I paid rent at home. My parents paid for my tools and I appreciate the help, I really do. But they paid $120,000 to $150,000 each for my siblings. They gave me $7,000 for tools. But to them, it's equal. When I went back to school on my own, I didn't ask for money and wasn't offered it. When my brother went back to school, they covered everything without him even having to ask. There were many other small moments, comments about cars and other lifestyle choices, but what made me snap was my brother and his wife mentioning their marriage being so great because they do things like spontaneous dates, like the one they had the prior Friday night. The same Friday night, when my parents called my wife and me at the last minute to cancel plans we had to eat dinner at our house because they had to watch Chuck's kids because of an emergency. Turns out that emergency was a dinner for Chuck and my sister-in-law at Texas Roadhouse. I had spent hours making my grandpa's ziti and meatballs with homemade marinara because it's my mom's favorite. I wanted more than anything to scream at them, but instead, I got up and left without saying a word, and my wife followed me. When my mom called me later to ask why I had left, I explained exactly why. I explained the favoritism, the unfairness, and the fact that it doesn't feel like they care about me. She didn't say much, and I wasn't really looking for an explanation or an apology at the moment. I just felt like it was self-evident, but if she really didn't see it, I'd spell it out. Evidently, at least parts of what I said had been shared with my siblings because now Chuck and Lori are furious at me saying I ruined dinner and my mom is upset that I am hurt. They say I'm immature for keeping score. Am I the a-hole? Well, OP, no, actually you handled this very maturely. Instead of making a scene and everything, you got up and left. You didn't ruin dinner, they did. And if your mom and dad are upset, it's because they've been confronted that they've been crappy parents to you. Now, whatever they're telling your siblings about the kind of conversation they had with you is irrelevant, and your siblings saying that you're immature for keeping score, well, they can stuff it and go suck a lemon at the same time. They were really enjoying that dinner, just rubbing all that crap in your face, but you know, you can't say anything about it, because if you do, well, then you're immature and keeping score. So no, OP, I do not think you're the a-hole. I don't think you're keeping score. I think it's just the reality of your life that you've been treated this way. And the fact that you just got up and left without making a scene, well, that speaks volumes of you. So my follow-up question is, what do you want to come out of this? And what is your judgment? Let me know in the comment section. And now let's move on with the community comments to see what they said. Deleted says, not the a-hole. Your siblings are keeping score as well. They used that score to belittle you every time they see you. Your parents, including your mom, who is all of a sudden upset that you are hurt, have allowed that to happen. Your mom is only upset because you finally stood up for yourself and called them all out. Keep on keeping score. They certainly will. And Opie responds, honestly, on the phone, she didn't seem agitated at all, but when I started explaining everything, she just got kind of sad, I guess? She got real quiet and didn't say much. Love Chins 2024 says, not the a-hole, but a bit of advice. Once you let go of the hold DNA has over people, you can be free. Childhood keeps you together because you are under one roof. The roof of adult relationships is settled there. If you fall into the trap that DNA, rather than the worthiness of connections, is more important, then yeah, you can easily end up being hurt. I'm sorry you don't have the family you deserve. And LizWill315 says, how do you like your in-laws? If you get along with them, maybe it's time to go to their holiday dinners and chill out on your blood relatives for a while. If that option isn't available, maybe save up so you and your wife can take a trip for the holidays. You are not required to spend time with people who upset you. And Opie responds, my wife's family is a disaster. She really only speaks to her sister, and I've only met her dad once. He seems nice enough, and there is probably a door to some reconnection there in the long run, but he's going through his own stuff. Opie's context comment. 1. There is no reason to believe I am not my father's child. The list of genetic coincidences that would be necessary for that to be the case is long and not worth rehashing. He doesn't have any male relatives that could explain it either. He has one sibling, my aunt, and none of his cousins have ever been in his life or even remotely local. I just look like my paternal grandfather. I always have. He died when my father was young, but by all accounts, he was a good father and is remembered fondly. 2. My younger sister has been the beneficiary of many, if not most, of the things my parents chose not to give to me. But she did not ask for any of that and has been one of the only people consistently trying to make it right. I mean, for goodness sake, she was trying to fix it when she was 6. She has definitely not seen everything, but what she has seen, she has tried to correct. She is perhaps guilty of assuming the best of people and not asking questions, but she isn't heartless, and getting angry at her isn't going to fix anything. We talked for a long time after I posted this. She has been told she was contributing for a birthday gift for me every year since at least 2018. She gave money to my older sister to buy my wife and me tickets to my favorite soccer team. And then when my wife and I inevitably posted about going to games, she assumed one of the games we went to each year was the gift she had been contributing money towards. It turns out the money Jade and her husband were contributing never became a birthday gift for me. There is a lot of backstory there, but the gist of it is that Jade and I have always gotten along well, and Jade does not participate in singling me out negatively. She and her husband frequently spend time with my wife and me, usually just the 4 of us. 3. I was definitely favored by my maternal grandfather growing up, but it's not like I got extra gifts or anything. He and I just have very similar personalities, and that is evident from a young age. I am on the spectrum, and I feel very strongly that were he my age, he had been diagnosed as well. We both struggle mightily with a lot of sensory things, but loud crowds and being surrounded by a lot of disparate sources of noise, like perhaps his loud Italian family, overwhelms both of us. So both of us hide for at least some portion of all family gatherings. Over time, we started hiding together by just leaving to play bocce or lock ourselves in the kitchen to cook. As an adult, he has made comments that indicate he sees that I'm not being given as much, and in the last 2 to 3 years, he has definitely given more items to me than anyone else. Things he wants me specifically to have if and when he passes, and that he wants me to enjoy now. That was definitely a source of tension on Friday. He is quite wealthy, and my older siblings are accusing me of trying to enrich myself through inheritance. I have no clue what his plans are, and I will not and will never ask. It's not my business, and he has always had a pathological need to make things even. Everyone gets the same number of boxes at Christmas, with as near as possible the exact amount of money spent on each recipient. So I do not expect him to behave differently with his estate. I honestly expect that anything that doesn't go to charitable causes will be divided evenly, but I really think it's all going to charity. Where my older siblings see the monetary value of his record collection and view it as a financial windfall, I just see a beautiful collection of music I get to keep listening to. I'd never sell that. They feel that I'm hoarding the antique watches he gave me, the most valuable of which is a 60s Timex Marlin. But again, they just want me to sell them and divide the cash. First of all, they aren't valuable except in sentiment. Second of all, Pop is very much still alive and only gave them to me because he knows I will repair the ones I like and wear them. Selling them would be extremely rude and entitled. They are angry that he gave me his first nice car because it doesn't have a nominal value even now. It is too old to be valuable as a reliable vehicle, and it is not old or rare or desirable enough to be a collector's item. But to me, it's a sentimental item. It was his Sunday car for years, and while I've had to put a lot of work into keeping it running, it's in excellent cosmetic condition. My older siblings are contesting that actually I am the favorite, and the very measurable and extremely generous financial gifts given to them by my parents are somehow dwarfed by their, in my opinion, very inflated estimation of the financial value of the gifts my grandfather has given me recently. 4. My paternal grandmother has openly favored me more and more as I've aged. Again, this is not financial, and to my knowledge, she isn't in a position to leave me an inheritance, not that I'd even ask that of her. There is an old clock of hers made by a local clockmaker and housed in a handmade cabinet that I used to spend hours looking at when I was really young, and she actually put multiple labels inside as early as when I was 5 or 6, saying that it belongs to me. But I didn't ask for that. I appreciate it, and I will gladly accept it if she still feels that way when the time comes. But I don't spend the time I spend with her as some sort of plot to steal her clock. I just like hanging out with my Oma. She's a really funny lady, and she likes walking with my wife, my dogs, and me. She stays with us in our house on holidays instead of staying in the guest house my parents had built for her. My siblings are under the impression that she has somehow supported me financially. Again, unless there is something I am not aware of, she is not in a position to do this. And 5. My wife and I will be meeting with my parents at some point over the next week to talk. I do not know what to expect, but I will be taking the time to write stuff down in preparation. I don't even know what I want from it, but I will be bringing up family therapy. Alright, well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole, and we got a lot of context regarding everything that's going on in the background. So now, let's move on to the update to see how the story ends. So, update time. About a week after that post, my wife and I sat down with my parents and cleared the air. As several people suggested, I wrote down my thoughts and compiled, to the best of my knowledge, a listing and full accounting of the disparity between what my siblings were giving over the years and what I was given. I did actually sit down and do the math, and it turns out that while I was at the Technicum, I actually paid my parents more in rent than they ever paid for my tools. The final reckoning came to between $370,000 on the high end, Jade, and $190,000 on the low end, Chuck, for how much my parents directly gave to my siblings that they never gave me. Sitting down and seeing the full amount all spelled out like that is probably the angriest I got during this whole mess. My parents had been aware there were discrepancies, but really pushed back on the actual amount until we sat down and went through each major incident case by case, by which point my dad admitted my reckoning was likely conservative. That was more or less the end of any productive talk that night. My dad just claimed they didn't think it had gotten that bad, but wouldn't give any details about how they could have possibly not noticed. In the interim, Chuck and Lori continued to escalate their anger and continued to call and text me, my parents, and my extended family. I have not spoken to either of them directly since and don't expect to anytime soon. Roughly a week after that first sit-down, my mom and dad asked to meet again. Lots was said, but the gist is this: they felt I was doing well and didn't need their help. Basically, they thought I would be fine without them. They admitted they probably lived outside their means and gave more to my older siblings than they should have and could never have given me that much. They claimed the timing of my wedding lined up with probably the direst of their overspending or lack of savings, and that they literally did not have the funds to live up to their promise. At the time, they were paying for Jade's tuition, car, and apartment. Anyway, they have offered to pay for vacations, give me money, a car, and all kinds of stuff, but I think they don't really get it yet. My wife and I don't want their money, but we aren't really sure yet what an ideal resolution to this looks like. At least they have admitted they were unfair and are open to working things out. I believe if I let my parents give me money, which I'm not even sure if they have, they will consider us even and not actually address the fact that even without the money, I was treated differently. Until I have a reason to believe the offer of money is coming from anywhere other than an attempt to get back into my good graces and buy my forgiveness, I'm not interested. Like, if I let them pay off my mortgage though, I know they would try to use that as leverage. I know them too well not to know that's what they do. Also, my grandparents are fully caught up. Part of why I'm not overly concerned with settling the score, for lack of a better phrase, is that I have now been told in no uncertain terms I will come out of this better off. My pop-pop has since had several private conversations with me where he has explicitly spelled out what his estate plans are. I wasn't too far off on the charity front, but to him, setting things right means money for me as well as several other details. My wife and I spent Easter with Jade, her husband, and my grandparents, and my mom and dad came over in the evening. Jade and her husband are not speaking to either of my siblings now. They were both genuinely astonished to hear I hadn't been getting gifts from my siblings. She and her husband do well financially in their own right, and they share freely. I know she got a leg up, but it's not fair to begrudge her considering she didn't ask for it. She is mortified at how uneven things are, and Chuck and Lori are mad that it's not continuing. My parents know about my birthday gift scam and are still in contact with Chuck, Lori, and their respective families. Lori and Chuck are the two who have given them grandchildren, and I don't want or expect my parents to turn a cold shoulder to them. In the meantime, my own relationship with my parents is strained and pretty low contact, and I'd rather focus on that. I don't really have any real relationship with either of my older siblings, and I can't see myself ever caring enough to try. This seems to be more or less the new normal for now. Well, OP, it's not a full-on happy update, but it is a positive one. Your parents have admitted that they were unfair, however, they haven't truly gotten the complete point that you're trying to make. Hopefully they'll get there. Your two older siblings seem like lost cases, and it's good that you don't care much about that, and financially-wise, you're gonna be okay. So here's wishing you the best in the future, OP. Hopefully your parents do get the point that you're trying to make. But in the meantime, take care and thank you for sharing. Now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliant, and it's by user Bacon Flavored Nipple. You want to be included in every single email? A little over a year ago, I found myself stepping into the role of senior project manager for a long-standing client I had been managing for quite some time. The transition into this new position seemed promising until I began to realize the management style of my new boss, someone with whom I had never interacted during my previous role. It quickly became apparent that he had a penchant for micromanagement. One instance that stands out vividly is when he questioned me via Slack, we work from home full-time, about why he hadn't been invited to an internal team call. I explained my reasoning, assuring him that I had everything under control and his input wasn't necessary for that particular discussion. However, his micromanagement tendencies didn't end there. He began requesting updates on my lunch breaks, expecting notifications when I stepped away and returned, despite my Slack status indicating my availability. Furthermore, he insisted on being informed of my daily login and logout times, regardless of his own status online. He even wanted me to outline my daily tasks within my Outlook calendar hour by hour. The situation escalated when he expressed discontent over not being included in client communication emails despite receiving comprehensive updates during our weekly catch-up meetings. Despite my efforts to keep him informed through detailed reports and follow-up emails, he insisted that he be included in every single correspondence, citing transparency as his primary concern. I started to feel that I wasn't trusted and started to doubt my ability within my role. I battled with myself and wondered what I was doing wrong. Every single email, you say? I began including him in every email, whether it was directly relevant to our projects or not, from routine communications with colleagues to mundane requests for IT support or office supplies. His inbox soon overflowed with 20 to 30 pointless emails daily. Remarkably, not a single complaint about transparency surfaced thereafter, only complaints about too many emails. It seems inundating him with every conceivable email served as the perfect solution to his insatiable desire for oversight. Well, OP, he wanted to breathe over your shoulders by being included in every single email. That's exactly what he got. He can't complain about that. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.